I'm technologically deficient, as all my students will acknowledge. My name is Todd Johnson. I'm a professor of practice at Utah State University. I went to school here a few decades ago, and about 10 years I came back to teach with that gentleman right there, Dave Bell, um, who is also a practitioner and a professor of landscape architecture. And we all kind of come from the Utah State Aggie background. And so we have today, and as a result of gracious invitation by Levi Roberts from the city of Nibley. Are we a city or a town? City of Nibley. Uh, Gracious invitation to allow us and our 13 students, a mixture of graduates and undergraduates in environmental planning and landscape architecture, urban design. So a mixture of students to look at various subject areas. I guess what characterizes this class is it's multi-scales. So it looks to the broadest context at a couple of systems that underlie the integrity of Nibley. And then it looks at three specific project areas that take the larger scale information and try to draw conclusions about specific planning and design actions that can be taken from those. This is about a 15, 16-week studio course. In the first 4 or 5 weeks, the students investigate different methodologies in topical areas and look at precedents from around the country, from Fort Collins to Toronto. And they learn how to solve complex problems. And then they employ that knowledge gained from that in one of these 5 subject areas. So if there are any real heated questions, Levi is your man. And we're going to try to get through this in about half an hour so that we can have some conversation in the last 15 minutes. So Hironi's going to start.
All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. As Todd said, we're the Bioregional Analysis and Planning Studio at USU, and we're very happy to be here. We did want to give a special thanks to Levi and also to Karina Brown from the Nibley City Planning Commission in inviting us to present to you all today. So as Todd said, our studio is a mix of Masters of Environmental Planning, Masters of Landscape Architecture, and undergraduate environmental planners, and we're seeking to investigate and understand the natural and the man-made systems that form the places we live in order to plan and design for a better future. So we have formed teams of 2 to 3 students addressing 5 topics related to the growth and development of Nibley City in coordination with Levi. And what we are presenting today is still a work in progress. We're about 70 to 75% through the project. And so after this presentation, if anyone is interested in following our work, as we continue, we will be presenting our final presentation, our final plans and designs on December 11th at Nibley City's Planning Commission. So every community has a plan and a vision what it wants to be. For Nibley, that vision is clear. They want to be a vibrant community while protecting their identity by preserving natural spaces and maintaining a rural atmosphere. This is their goal. But this is the conflict, explosive population growth. This leaves Nibley and our project with a fundamental question of what happens when these two forces exist. Can we accommodate both while preserving Nibley's vision and identity while meeting the needs of the incoming people? Is this accommodation for both? Is this even possible? Our project explores this conflict and proposes a path forward. So today we're going to walk you through these 5 topics. We'll start by looking at the context and the structure of Nibley with the natural systems and open space teams, and then that will set us up for design proposals from the town center and the neighborhood design teams. And finally, we'll present the specific vision and design for a central park from the Nibley Town Center Park Design team. And then we'll conclude with about 10 minutes of a Q&A session. And with that, let's begin.
All right. Wrong way. So, hi everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Jason,
I'm Hilo.
and as you can tell, we are the Natural Systems team. We will be presenting our findings so far about what the natural systems are in and around Nibley and why they're important. So, along with natural systems and why they're important, we are exploring the question, how can Nibley's needs be met through the conservation of natural systems? And to help answer this question, we would like to ask yet another question. So, here we go. Feel free to shout out your opinion if you want, or you can just think about it. Would you rather live in a city much like this one on the left, or much like the one on the right? Right. So, the neighborhood on the right was planned on a foundation of natural systems and the ecosystem services that are provided. So, how can we help steer Nibley towards this neighborhood on the right that closer aligns with Nibley's goals? Okay. In order to answer this, oops, we first must understand that Nibley is an important part of the larger system. Second, identify the city's most critical natural assets or cores. And third, create connections to both protect and preserve those assets while connecting the community to them. Looking at the bigger picture, there are three main systems that Nibley is a part of: the ecological system, the built system, and the agricultural system. Finding finding the balance of these three systems in that middle area is the goal. Understanding those three systems requires a zoomed out perspective. This is our larger scale area of focus to explore these systems in the southern end of Cache Valley, as you can see there. We have Nibley City's current city boundaries in the black, and the red is the annexation area planned by the city. And to look at these in a larger perspective, we have what we're calling the Nibley watershed, which is just a subgrouping of the watersheds in which Nibley resides. So looking at this Nibley watershed, we can see the water flows from the mountains down into Cutler Marsh. And then from Cutler Marsh, it continues through the Bear River and onto the Great Salt Lake. And along these northwestern paths are opportunities for conservation to strengthen these systems. Now, along some of the main roads in Cache Valley, we see significant areas of growth, following more of a northeastern path, and this growth is only projected to continue. Okay. Agriculture is also a major part of the community, the economy, and the identity of Cache Valley and Nibley, so it is something that should be embraced and protected. This can be done by conserving current ag land and by finding optimal ag land for the future. Understanding what these systems mean for Nibley can help provide direction for Nibley's future. By identifying core areas of these systems and connecting them through corridors, we can help create and protect complete, sustained, and interconnected systems.
So now we're going to zoom into the city of Nibley itself and look at these three systems from this city scale. So the ecology for Nibley has been defined by the streams and rivers, wetlands, lakes, and the floodplain. Following that northwest direction from the Nibley watershed along major rivers, we found critical areas of conservation that serve as opportunities to enhance and protect the natural systems, as well as opportunities for the city to integrate various types of recreational areas. The built system consists of roads, high and medium levels of development, and their spheres of influence. Along major roads connecting Nibley with its neighbors, Logan, Millville, and Hiram, increasing levels of development are occurring. We can see that same pattern occurring in Nibley too. And as Nibley grows, this pattern will continue to spread, creating new neighborhoods where people can live, work, and play in a healthy and safe environment. The The agricultural system is comprised of existing protected ag lands, soils that are prime for agriculture, canals, and roads. The soils that are best for agriculture parallel the natural systems, and when combined with the existing protected ag lands, we can see areas to continue agricultural land use as a key identity, as a key part of Nibley's identity. So how can the conservation of natural systems meet the needs of Nibley City? Creating and reinforcing ecological and community connections provide many benefits such as social and community benefits reflecting the identity of the city, environmental and ecological benefits that promote a vibrant and active community, and ecological and health benefits that connect the people with nature. And for the rest of the semester, we'll be working on a final master plan that meets the needs of all these systems while supporting the visions and goals of Nibley. And with this conservation master plan in hand, we'll be able to propose ways these systems can be protected and strengthened for the benefit of the city and of the environment, and start looking forward to how people can interact with these systems through the Parks and Open Space Plan.
Okay. Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Gaia Nafziger, and I'm part of the open space team along with my teammate Krista Guyman. So one touch of nature makes the whole world kin. That's a William Shakespeare quote. And as we've gone through time, this idea has been really supported by scientific evidence now. We know that open spaces really draws people together. It increases their health, happiness, and ways of life. So how can a growing city seize opportunity? When I started looking at the open spaces in Nibley, I really wanted to look first at modes of transportation, how people were in the community were traveling places safely. I wanted to look at the development because of how population growth has been expected to just boom in Nibley. And I wanted to look at these really interesting agricultural spaces that they have that form this really beautiful sort of natural system there. So the methods that I used were a couple of analysis softwares, Trust for Public Land, and I also talked with professionals, went and made in-person observations, and I had help from my mentor, Joe Diaz, who's the Deputy Parks Director in Phoenix. So I wanted to quickly touch on some lessons that we can learn from other cities when thinking about open space systems. For Salt Lake, some of these headlines might look familiar. This is about how they have been managing their natural resource of water. And the culmination of this really is that when they wanted to unbury their water systems, it is costing the city $90 million to do. So it's an incredible lesson in the finances of planning and not taking your natural resources for granted. So let me touch on Logan here really quickly too. Some of these headlines look familiar, I'm sure. People have heard a lot about their green space management and their water management. This project is currently sort of in the works. And then ending with this new sort of ruling on changing river buffers. And these setbacks may seem like a small thing, but they really stop ecosystems from being able to provide as many services as would really benefit an area. So every time you change the rules like these, was developments coming in, it's really a lesson in how a lack of planning can really detract from your city's entire system. So the goals for this project were to create an index of park classifications to codify park classifications that help guide the city as it grows, evaluate and address constraints facing Nibley, and identify a prioritization system that targets first step areas in need of preservation, land acquisition, or connection. So let's dive in to this index of park classifications. These are the entirety of our classifications, but I'm just going to talk about a couple specific ones. This regional park, this is kind of a large service area, and it has a lot of different amenities for the local community. People will really travel to enjoy what these parks have to offer. And I bring this up particularly because we have a design for this later, our park system. This agricultural park I thought would be a really special sort of park classification for Nibley. You all know that Nibley has this gorgeous farmland, and to preserve that, turning it into a type of park would be really beneficial for the area. The type of amenities this would provide would be like walking trails, picnic areas, educational components, farmers markets, special events, places where the public could really celebrate agriculture and enjoy it. And then this other one, ecological parks. This is sort of, these are variably sized, and these really help the community to understand and enjoy the natural resources of an area while cleaning the air, cleaning the water, keeping things healthy. And then our very last one, linear parks. The service area radius is also variable. These are our walking trails and parks, so these can be differently sized and different shapes and forms. But really what they have in common is that they're made for modes of recreational travel, like walking and jogging, maybe horseback riding. I don't know if there's horseback riders in Nibley. So now we're going to evaluate and address constraints facing Nibley. And I'm just going to keep us oriented here. I have the annexation boundary, the Nibley's city boundary, and then this magenta dot right here is Ridgeline High. So we can kind of keep an eye on that, and everybody can know where these different things are located. So one of our first constraints is a big one, the two highways that kind of wedge Nibley in. And these can really be addressed simply by, on a pedestrian level, by putting longer walkways, pedestrian walkways across those highways on our pedestrian trail connections. This is good on 89 and also on Main Street on the other side. So another thing that could really help is, even though it's a constraint in some ways, it's an opportunity in other ways. A lot of eyeballs are coming down the highway there as people make their commute, as people drive, and a lot of people from some of the more crowded valleys to the south, I think, would really be interested in a beautiful agricultural open space area. So having a welcoming and identifiable entrance to Nibley, especially on 89, so that people can really feel like they can identify and know what Nibley's about, I think is a really good opportunity. So another constraint is cost. These are the current ways that Nibley City is helping finance their open spaces. And another way that might be really useful is just to create a sales tax, just like a really small percentage of the sales tax revenue going to public open spaces. And that can ensure protection long term. Okay, so we're here at the last goal, identify a prioritization system that targets first step areas in need of preservation, land acquisition, or connection. So this is the walkability of Nibley as from all of the existing parks. So first I looked at walkability, then I kind of looked at the regions that were not within that zone, and identified parcels of land that are currently undeveloped that might be excellent park acquisitions. So then I use a tool from Trust for Public Land, and this takes into account population density, heat islands, air pollution, income health, and mental health. And it sort of creates this system of what places in Nibley are a higher priority for acquiring land and creating new parks. And you can tell that it sort of starts north, and that it's especially important in areas next to Ridgeline and in the really densely populated areas. But I also wanted to look at this other idea, which is that even though the Trust for Public Land is using a lot of population density and thinking about how we can help the population currently have access to parks, I think that it would be really beneficial in Nibley's case particularly to think about agricultural protection areas and look at all of the spaces that in that annexation area that are currently undeveloped. So if you just take a moment to really think about planning and think about protecting the spaces first, it is a lot less expensive, it's a lot easier, and it has overall much better outcomes for the entire population if you codify some of these things and you plan in advance. So I think it would be really beneficial for Nibley to look into agricultural protection areas and park classification and transfer of development rights to help phase and figure out where to put their budget. Here's another constraint, city coding. So I won't take too long on this. I just want to talk about Euclidean coding versus form-based coding. So Euclidean code really is about use, and it's about putting things together that might be bad together, like maybe a grade school and a factory. Form-based code is really about more of the actual physical built form of a place, and it provides a lot more nuance and can help a city really plan. Okay, so this last constraint, unidentifiable trail systems. We already helped this a little bit through our linear park classification and our natural trail systems. We really wanted to look at all of the good work that our ecology team did, and they identified all of these really important wetland zones, river zones, and the slough. And we wanted to really capitalize on that by building trails in these areas. Our most important one goes up along the Blacksmith Fork Trail. And then we've created these other loops, and most importantly, this loop up top by green loop up top by Ridgeline High. We also wanted to create city pedestrian and bike loops. And these loops are really going to be partially on existing roadways and partially using acquisition from canals to build new trails and make those systems all connected. So this is our city trail loop, and this really hopes to connect. You can see that same loop up by Ridgeline High. It hopes to connect these trail systems with our natural trail systems. And with that, I'm going to pass it off. This is a little sneak peek of where we've identified as a great place for our town center. So now I'll pass it off to our town center team.
Okay, thanks so much. My name is Kate and this is Emmeline, and we are representing the Town Center team. So upon speaking with the Nibley City Planning Commission back in September, there was an expressed desire for a appropriate centralized town center location. And so our goal through the town center is to identify, connect, and add variety into this town center in hopes of creating a successful third place. So this is a bit of context for you. You can see Nibley is very centrally located, and upon looking at the Nibley City General Plan update, this block was identified as an appropriate spot for the town center, so between 2600 and 3200 south. And those magenta dots on there are, again, Ridgeline High School and then the Nibley City offices, just for some context. And so as part of our analysis, we wanted to look at the projected growth in Nibley, and Nibley's numbers are projected to nearly double in the next 20 years, which provides a huge opportunity for us to guide this growth in a positive and respectful manner. And then we also looked at median household income. And so Nibley's median household income is just under 106,000 currently, and so you can see the breakdown there of Nibley as a whole. And again, for a little more context, this is our zoomed in site. We really want to identify the surrounding existing assets and landmarks. And so those include Ridgeline High School, Ginny Soda Shop, Onder Park, and again, the Nibley City offices. A huge part of our analysis and really justifying the location of our town center was looking at traffic volume. So we spent some time digging into UDOT's ADTs. And as you can see along 89 there's a very heavy traffic flow, which primarily flows through 3200 South. And this road is becoming increasingly busy as the population increases. And then Main Street, which is sitting at around 21 to 25,000 average daily trips, which seems high. And a good comparison for this is Logan's Main Street is currently at 35,000 average daily trips. So with the projected growth, obviously that's a lot higher, but we predict that this could be very similar in the next 20-ish years. So this is the beginnings of our design concept. Again, like Hilo said, we're about 70% through, so we're looking to detail this out. But we really wanted to prioritize in our conceptual design a connection from really to Ridgeline, and we also wanted to avoid congestion at those major nodes. So at 2600 and 3200, hence creating a new center street through the middle of that block. We also really want to prioritize a safer active corridor off of Main Street and those connections to green space on either end, as well as continued development to the south of our site. These are just some street sections that we've kind of been experimenting with. The dimensions were taken from Nibley City's active transportation plan. So what you're looking at is Main Street, and we really want to prioritize pedestrian comfortability as well as cyclist safety. So we have a separated bike lane, and we're also looking into safer access across Main Street, as that is a busy, intimidating street as a pedestrian. And then this would be that center street we proposed, which again has the separated bike lanes. It's a little bit shorter because we want to incentivize people to cross the street. And here we're really going to advocate for vehicular calming measures in order to potentially close off the street when we have larger community like programmed events.
Okay, so along with the street typologies that were just talked about, human scale block dimensions are a key to an engaging center. Short, compact blocks framed with 1, 2, or 3-story buildings facilitate easy navigation and walkability, keeping people's interest and encouraging continuous activity and social interaction. This block style introduces a mixed-use approach and allows for a sensitive, compact district, which would be supported by a transfer of development rights, which we heard a little bit about earlier. This would in turn provide for a conservation of more open space in the precious undeveloped green space to the south end of Nibley. And the live-work units under the mixed-use category blend housing with small business space. So shops on the ground floor with living space above and street front access to the commercial with the parking behind. These could look something like this, capturing the atmosphere that identifies Nibley as a small historic-based community with an intimate, safe, and comfortable core. Small accessory commercial units mixed in these blocks could provide a low-cost entry point for young entrepreneurs, and this area would be designated as a special tax district with public-private partnerships. The core is ignited by a small initial phase at the corner of Main Street and the proposed Center Street, barn-style market space / cafe would be walkably connected to a library, feathering into open space available for public gatherings, and plenty of indoor winter space. Well, indoor space for winter use. We affectionately call this the hay shed. You can click. Oh, yeah. So this anchor would be followed by an introduction of other small businesses and more residential along Center Street as traffic continues to increase. Our commercial approach is a non-traditional approach, steering away from the typical franchise setup. And so the hay shed, which is our anchor, would include food, market space, and an inviting outdoor plaza, creating a third space for kids, teens, more mature folks, all ages. Later phase businesses would follow the same organic approach, building on the shoulders of current local businesses like these and other similar businesses. And moving forward, just drawing on Nibley's existing assets, which are vast and wonderful, we seek to create a non-traditional town center that will sensitively connect proposed residential development and a new Central Park and neighborhoods celebrating Nibley's values and traditions and identity.
Hello, I'm Jana, and this is Jessica, and we are the neighborhood design team. So Cache Valley is growing fast, around 2% each year, with 11,600 new homes needed by 2030. Housing is already tight. Logan ranks 178th nationally in affordability, and demand continues to rise. However, new development is often perceived as a threat to what we already know and love. So the question is this: how can Nibley grow to meet housing demand without losing the character that defines it or the natural systems that make it special? Our team is creating a model neighborhood within that central block that the town center team was just talking about. And we are employing two main strategies to do this. One, we are looking at middle housing, and second, we are integrating natural, social, and economic systems. So middle housing is a spectrum of housing types between detached single-family houses that make up most of our housing inventory currently and mid-rise apartments. These housing types are often referred to as missing because although they were prevalent before the 1940s, current zoning practices make them almost impossible to implement. But these housing types should be implemented because they have a wide variety of benefits, including housing choices. Different households with different needs can find a house that meets their needs, whether it be grandma and grandpa downsizing without uprooting themselves from the community they love, or a young family finding a starter home. Middle housing also increases the supply of housing while providing smaller units that are therefore cheaper, helping with affordability. Middle housing can also strengthen the local economy and build communities by bringing people together. And so, although there are a wide range of types of middle housing, they all share these core characteristics. They're multi-unit buildings, but these buildings aren't giant apartment buildings, they're house-sized. And they share open space, bringing people together. They have reduced parking requirements. And this one is key: lower perceived density. On paper, there are more households per acre. But when you walk down the street with these houses, it doesn't feel like you're in a dense area. It just feels like the neighborhood you already know and love. And Utahns actually like middle housing when it fits in with the neighborhood it's built within. They especially like it when it appears to be single family because you can design it so that it looks like what we already like. And what's more, 46% of Utahns are willing to accept middle housing within their neighborhoods, and an even greater percent are willing to accept it within their city, if not within their neighborhood, making it a viable tool for meeting housing demand. To actually implement middle housing, form-based code enables good design. Rather than zoning for use or zoning for density and numbers, you're thinking about how buildings sit on the land, how people move through the space, and how life exists. And because we design at a human scale, because there are more people within critical areas towards for local businesses, because people are brought together by the shapes of these buildings and how they integrate into the system, they become a very vibrant place that people enjoy living.
It's tricky to hold three things at once. Right, so bringing you down into Nibley, this is that block that we talked about before between 2600 and 3200, and you can see the high school over in the right-hand corner. The natural systems that have been identified previously show this wetland and riparian corridor, the Blacksmith Fork River, running along the east side or east boundary of Nibley. And within that, we've identified this wetland system on the northwestern quarter of the block, as well as Stokes Nature Center. And these natural systems really are assets to the community that people should be able to connect to. Along with that, we've got these recreation centers. So you've got Ridgeline Park, the football fields that are around the city offices, and Andor Park with the amphitheater. You've also got this social fabric, that high school in the corner, the churches, as well as Ginny's, the current town center we're calling it. And you've got these development centers that are planned or are being built currently. But you've got this wide area here that's basically open for the taking, and we're considering that this is the best place to organize a model neighborhood that really can capitalize on all of these assets, the natural systems, recreation centers, and social fabric, as well as this town center, which has been identified in that part of the block. So what we really want to do is provide connections through the neighborhood to all of these amenities that people should be able to enjoy. And zooming in a little bit, we focused on this corner. So looking at our neighborhood plan, we've drafted a mock density plan that we're developing as we go through the semester. And here you can see our different zoning types. So that dark brown is that live work area. So commercial on the bottom and above it having residential apartments for people to live. And down below you can have it so that there's small businesses as well as live work spaces, home offices that could be converted, or they could potentially be apartments if there's not a need for commercial at that point in time. We're also looking at townhome typologies, as well as cottage courts, which are essentially small homes organized around a central green space that really encourages a community, smaller community within a community, and duplexes as well. And that duplex and fourplex is really a big missing type in our current typologies, also often missing from city plans. So the plan is to provide these social centers like the library touched on by the town center team, as well as this massive green space and little commercial nodes that could come off of that, and connecting it all through these green space and greenways, linear park systems that traverse all the way from the high school all the way down to Ginny's and across as well from the high school to this park system. So picture this. Nibley's new neighborhood is just a short walk from the town center, where kids can ride bikes on quiet streets and park without ever crossing a busy road. There's a natural wetland that winds through the middle, which manages storm water but also supports wildlife. And in the morning, parents can stop by at the bakery, drop into the library with their kids. You've got homes of all types, a home for a young couple, a downsized empty nesters, or a rental for someone getting started. And if we focus growth here, we can protect the farmland around town and make the most of the existing infrastructure in the center of Nibley, and one that all centers around this Nibley City Central Park.
All right. So I'm Tyler, and this is Will, and we're representing the group that's specifically designing that central park that was just mentioned. Now, to begin with, we were told from the city council that there was actually a park that these guys mentioned, Ridgeline Park, which is being built, and they wanted to find a way to be able to design some of the areas north of it. So that's really what we're looking forward to, is explaining how we're being able to combine ecology, people, and identity to create that central park. And that is also what I'm hoping all of you are here to learn from as well. So some of you aren't from Nibley, and some of you, I found out, are maybe from Hyde Park, a little bit away from Nibley. So how does a specific design help you and your cities? Like I said, today we're going to talk about people, identity, and ecology. Those three things every city has in this valley. So to start with the people, we have about 51% of Nibley is the ages of 20 to 60. we have 6% of the population that's going to be 60 and above, which means that the remainder, 43%, is ages 0 to 20. That is a lot of different type of demographics that people are going to be through. So we have to design for a lot of different people. On top of that, through 21 through 24, we actually have an 8% growth in population. And as one of the other groups had mentioned, in the next 20 years, that population is expected to double. So how can we work with those people? First of all, Nibley currently has a really great park structure, almost 84 acres of that park system throughout Nibley. They have neighborhood parks, which are active parks. Those are places where they have amenities in them. And then they also have open spaces. Those are some more naturalized parks for some more passive recreation. They asked their city how the people perceive those parks are doing. And they got almost 25% of the city to respond to those things. And in that, we see that they have requested new amenities as well as requesting programs for recreation. With those statistics, we have found that there's a rising demand for a central park that ties into both nature and the community. Going back to that same map again, we see that there's a dead zone right here. And that is where phase 1 is currently planned and where we are planning phase 2 of a central park for the city of Nibley. It falls in that underserved region. It will be able to serve as a connection point between all of those parks and all of the existing structure, as well as being able to connect back to that first group, that large natural watershed that we're talking about. Now, if we zoom in, we're going to throw on a couple of the identifiers here. We've got Ridgeline, we have Ginny's, we have the City Hall, and then this is that phase 1, as well as the residential and development that's going in right around it. This is what that area currently looks like from a drone footage if you're looking up north, and then this is what it looks like if you're looking south. So, back to our flat map here, we looked at what the wetlands look like, as well as a recommended 50-foot buffer for ecological health. And that gave us this really cool shape right here that we proposed the boundaries of that park to be in order to maintain that system that's going to be there. It's currently located on a lot of agricultural and pastoral land, and it can serve as an anchor point between the high school that's there and between City Hall, making sure that we can connect the people. From there, we're going to go into what that design actually looks like. We're going to go into the identity now.
All right. So, yeah, after fully understanding the context and the natural systems that run through our site, we started working on our concept plan. So, when we overlay the wetlands onto this plan, we started to see these green sort of islands that made up our site. And so, we thought it would be really cool to have each of these different islands have a different kind of experience for the park. And this would really drive people to, move around the park and explore these different places. So from there, we split our park into 3 separate sections. First is an observational recreation. This would be slower, more just walking trails, relaxing sort of vibe to it. And then educational recreation. This would focus on teaching kids about this natural system and how it informs the place that they live. And then social recreation. This is our more active area of the site with things like a playground. So first, the social-based recreation. Given that this sort of area is so close to our town center and then also that residential block, we wanted this to be our more active area. And so we would have a trail that connects the town center over that river, and then also a nature-based playground. And these numbers are from the survey we mentioned earlier of what people requested at the site. And this also connects to a larger trail system that runs along that river that ends up connecting to the Nibley City offices and the first phase of Ridgeline Park. And then also we added some basketball courts and volleyball courts down in that lower section there. And here's just a couple images of what we might want our park to look like. Next, we have our educational-based recreation. This would act as a place for kids from the elementary school or high school could come and learn about the nature here. Also, something people requested was a lot of trees for shading and pavilions for seating. And then also open space for sports fields. And then we also wanted to add a community garden down at that south end because it's next to the residential block and this could service future residents. And here's a couple images of what that might look like. And then lastly, our observational based recreation. Like I said, this is the quieter area. This provides a lot of natural habitat and people can walk around, enjoy the nature there, look at the wildlife that live there. It also includes a spot where we could add a pond for fishing and things like bird watching. And here's a couple images of what that could be. And then this is an image of up Blacksmith Fork Canyon. And one of the things we wanted to do with this park was bring the canyon to Nibley so people could enjoy things like this closer to their home. And it would create habitat for things like fireflies. And then lastly, we just wanted to reemphasize the point that how important it is that these natural systems inform our design and what we do. And it helps not only nature be happy, but people as well. And then also something really cool about this project is how each of these groups are working together. And we have the natural systems and the commercial and residential side of things. And each of us working together to create a more cohesive community. And it makes for happier people. Thank you for listening.
All right, we just want to once again thank everybody for coming and for, helping us to understand our work a little better. We also get the benefit every time we present to have to get to dig in and really find out what everything is about. We only have a couple of minutes left, I believe, but I want to just invite one of the members that presented to come up. And if there is any questions that somebody has, we can see if we can answer it or go through some of that. So you can take a seat. And then if one of the group members that presented, if one of you guys want to come up, is there anybody that does have a question?
Okay, I actually have two questions for the set people, which are where will the plaza be and will there be a post office?
The post office we have not fully discussed yet, but it could be possible to add that. And the plaza, there will be probably several plazas, but the main one would be at our little hay shack. Probably, yep, right around there somewhere. Yeah, yeah.
Currently exists, but it will be 20.
I mean, yeah.
I think we might have to call upon Pop.
Yeah.
You trying to you trying to they chose us, we chose them. So Dave Evans and I went out and talked to Levi and I don't know if there were three people, person from Public Works, someone from the county, Levi. And they had a vision of how students could understand things at larger scale and how that might focus attention on specific objectives that they have, which were town center, expansion of existing park, and then we kind of brought the idea of looking at a more idealized form of residential or an alternate form of residential that would integrate with open space and maybe be a little more dense. And when we present back to the commission and the council to try to get people to embrace some of this stuff and open their eyes to some possibilities that maybe haven't been explored. So that was kind of the origin of it.
Okay, I think this will probably end up being our last question.
Well, protected agricultural land, what form is that? And then over to our open space.
Well, I think that it depends on how the city goes about it. I'm not sure if we have fully defined that in the scope of our project, but that would be some way in which you would have to codify. There are currently protected agricultural areas that make sure that even within the Euclidean zoning system, they can continue to be useful agricultural. So there are already a lot of those areas hanging out in Nibley. Creating a new classification that would be codified within the city to have it be a type of park is a way that you could do that, or a transfer of development rights to preserve your land, something like that.
Protected agricultural areas today, we already have some.
They don't have protections in the form of that in perpetuity they can't be built on, but they just are able to be functional agricultural areas in whatever zone there is.